everyone. Welcome to week 3 at Fresno City College and week 3 in our class. Hope you're doing well. Hope you had a wonderful weekend. In my world, and actually in the world, there was history made this weekend with the social movement that happened on Saturday. So awesome example of democracy in our world. So I'd like to go over some really important things that are coming at you and just clarifications of some things. Seems like most of you have gotten off to a great start in this class. Awesome. Let me just hopefully give you some hints to make your experience even better and just to clarify a few things. So here's the list I want to go over. And we'll start with the first one. So shareable. So what I noticed is several people and I'll just move into my Google Drive here, seem to have either placed their documents, not everyone, but some of you did, in either you didn't place it in the shared with everyone, or you didn't do this part, which is you just right click on it, and actually it's right there, which just says get shareable link. Okay, now when you do that, that creates it as a shareable, so that anything you place in there then is shareable. And the other way you do it, and I showed, is actually to click here. But that's not the link that you share. You actually double click now, and you whatever you place in here, right, is what is permission set as shareable. So as long as you've set that as shareable and placed these in here as shareable, the next hurdle may have been the way you place it into Canvas. And I went over this in week 1 video, but it doesn't hurt repeating. Anytime you place something in here, okay, the pop-out's gone. You come over, you go to open in a new window. That's the new version of the pop-out. And then here, once you get here, then you can just get the embed code. Of course. Oh, oops, it seems like there's something wrong with that image, which is why I'm not getting, there it is, the embed code. So this is what you copy and paste into Canvas. Okay, for some of you that's a review, but I think it's good to know how to make sure. Now, one way to test this, and this is really what my item was about, is in the discussion, when you look at it, you're logged in to your Gmail. Okay, so in order for you to see if your shareable is set correctly and that you've linked everything, what you would do is log out of your Gmail and then come back in here. And it's maybe even close your browser and come back in, or alternatively open a different browser and go in to Canvas and get on to, as an example, the My Screens, because that's where some of you had some real challenges there. So it's important to have those directories set up. If you don't, you definitely want to, because we're going to use them throughout our time together. So that's the first thing, is make sure it's shareable. I showed you how, and then how to test it. Okay, so the next thing is quizzes. So you have your first quiz due tonight if you watch this on Monday, which I hope most of you do. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move to an example of a quiz this student took, and I want to show you some common things that I had mentioned that you need to make sure. So when you answer the matching, you need to do capital letter, comma, space. And if you don't do this, like you can see in this example, it's marked as wrong. So don't go to all the effort of making sure you've done the right matching concepts, but you haven't submitted it right, because it'll just be frustrating to you. The other thing is when you do the fill in the blank. So I had a couple students contact me, and I'll get to this one. This is the example. A couple students contacted me saying they submitted, but they didn't, there was an item that didn't tell them the right answer, and that's because on some items I actually have to go in and check. So this was one where the quiz only has a certain amount of result correct answers that it will look for. And so why didn't this one hit as correct? Because they didn't apostrophize it, new word, place of apostrophe and an S in here, or just use the word dementia. So that's really where you have to be very specific when you're answering the quiz questions, to make sure that you're using the exact grammatic examples that are in the textbook. Okay, so make sure you're doing that. All right, so that's let's go back here. So that was the quizzes. Now the other thing about chat, and chat has been really helpful for a lot of reasons, and here's really, and I'll come back to you why I want you to know about this, is that, yeah, I don't make it required. 50 of you are on it, which is awesome. So many many times you work during times that I don't necessarily work. Over the last couple weekends when we first get started, I try to be, more available on the weekend, but just know going forward, I do have a life, and so my weekends are mine typically. And that's why chat during the weekends really beneficial, because then you can ask other people questions, then they can be helpful, not more helpful to you. Not, I mean, I can't tell you every situation, but most they should be able to be helpful to you. And I think that is another reason to get on chat. And I also last Friday, after I was grading my my IT lab went down for a little while. So I posted out on chat that it was down, and then a couple hours later it was back. So that's the other reason to be on class chat, is you actually get up-to-date information, because it's easy for me to post something out to chat than it is to send it you all an email. Okay, so and not only that, that kind of stuff doesn't always get seen until later. So it's the immediateness of the chat that I think would hopefully, say come on in and join that, because there's a lot of good reasons to do that. Now, having said that, make sure from here on out you're communicating with me though through Canvas, because the campus is mandated that all my communications that are direct between you and I are in a system that they control. So don't email me through Gmail. Do that through the Canvas system. Okay? All right, so moving on, we're moving through the list pretty quickly, which was my hope. The My IT Lab, you have your first item due tonight. Hopefully, week 2, many of you in classwork, which, by the way, FYI, just a few of you did this. Make sure you put the most current notes at the top, so that when I open it up, I see the week that you just finished. Okay, so a couple of you put it below week 1, which would have made sense logically, but I'm asking you to do the reverse, which is to put the most current at the top. Okay, so coming into the My IT Lab, I talked about it in week 2 classwork, but I want to tell you something. I specifically told the face-to-face students that I think everyone would benefit from. So I'm going to move over here to a tab, and here's our first item due. Okay, by the way, I don't make this a required item, but you're welcome to do it to add to your late points returned options. And if you hopefully you know about those as well, but I'll come back to that in a future time. So in here, in your Word, you have training, which is not required, assessment, which is. And one thing you can do when you go into this item, and I did this, is I actually just went in, opened it up, and just hit submit. Now, because you have 3 attempts, right? So you have 1 attempt blown if you do this process. You have 2 more left, but remember, for each question you have 10 attempts. So you still have a lot of attempts left. But here's what this gives you. You can, once you do that, just hit submit, or maybe you're frustrated at something not working. Maybe you get to that point and you do this where you just hit submit. And then when you do submissions, view submissions, here's one thing that's really cool. You click on the score, and then when you do that, and it takes it a few minutes because it's got to bring in all the instruction that you need to do the assessment. Okay, so you do get training hints, right? You get the learning aids. It's still coming through. Here it is. So now, once you click on this, for every question, you get the step-by-step and alternative methods, which the alternative methods are great, especially for those of you having keyboard issues. So you have an alternative way to do things if for some reason you're running into that. And this can just make your experience of My IT easier. Now, what could you do here? You could leave this window up. Maybe it'll let you do that. But the other thing you could do is just select, right? You could select all of this text, right? Let me try this again. You can select all that text. Now, by the way, Control Alt A, that actually selects the whole thing. But there's ways that you can select that text and place it in a doc. You could even place it on your Google Drive to have that available for you to look at. So what it costs you to get, so this is my, what it costs you to get this instruction is 1 of your attempts. I think the price is well worth it, especially if you're running into technical issues. Now, having said that, hopefully you understood that. The other thing is about My IT Lab, and boy, is this the piece I really want you to know, is that they are your first line of support. And the reason I'm not is couple things. One, that's what you purchased is their support. And two, every computer is fairly unique in what it's installed with as far as software and how it's set up, as far as plugins, things that are running, what we call in your taskbar if you're on Windows or just always running. Any of those things can impact possibly your experience with My IT Lab. Using Chrome is definitely a good place to start, but it may not solve all of your challenges. So when you have challenges with My IT Lab, okay, if you're asking for help, the couple things you want to know if you're, if you're asking for help is a specific item, because these are randomized when you go to do them. Like, let me show you what I mean. By the way, this is going to pop up now. If you don't get that pop up, that means you don't have pop up enabled. But here's what I'm trying to show you is that when you're reporting challenges with My IT Lab, even though your number one might be the same, but others might be different. Like when you go to these, this is the number. The WD114 is the actual item if you're asking somebody for help, because their version might be different, that you'd want to make sure you're saying, oh yeah, I'm working on this item, which is, and it's listed here too, WD111, the first item in this case. Okay, and remember that view all, if you save later, you can come back and go up to the item that you dropped out at, and here's the 10 attempts. Okay, I'm not going to do this one, so I'll just minimize it for a second. Okay, so that's, I just want you to know that, right? And in the importance of getting support when you need it, that I'm not your first line of support, My IT Lab is. Okay, so I already talked about chat. I have it on here twice. So last thing for today is really about this Friday, the 27th, is the last day for you to purchase My IT Lab. And you really, and I've said this before, so if you didn't hear it, if you don't purchase My IT Lab, the chances of you passing are not, you can't pass this class without it. Let me say it more clearly than I was going to. So you need My IT Lab, okay? So get that done. If you were on a temporary account, make sure you've converted it into a paid account before the trial time expires, else you may lose some of the work that you had. That happened to a student last semester. So hopefully this is all good and that you're like you got all this working and everything's cool. But if not, the last thing I will leave you with, besides the whole My IT Lab deadline, is to come see me, right? So I have not only office hours on Monday and Wednesday from 1 until 1:50, but on Tuesday, Thursday, it's from 11 to 11:50. But then I'm in the classroom, and the way I run the classroom, it's pretty much an open lab, so you're welcome to, as online students, come in anytime you happen to be around campus. Go to my office, B113, look at that, or even look in here. So let me just show you this. In here is on the syllabus. I've also provided it here so that you can see my schedule and you can see when I'm available, right? So you can see the office hours, and then you can see the classroom I'm in, right, or the class. So anytime I'm in a class, so where it shows I'm always in BE 127. Okay, all right. Have a wonderful, wonderful week 3, and hopefully your world is well, and that you're just getting into the groove of the semester, and that you're happy with the experiences you're having. If you're not, I'm hearing some feedback, which is great, and I try to adjust for that stuff. But for the most part, most of you have gotten a really great start. So good for you. Have a good one.